What is a function? It is a group of statements that works together to perform a task. As long as it functions, then it is a function. Actually, you already encountered one function. Yes, it is the main function. A function also has a definition and declaration like a variable. It is usually used when you want to make your program more organized or when there is a group of statements that keeps repeating on different lines. You are using copy paste instead of using a function. For example, we have here a factorial variable. We need to scan an input for a factorial and it should be positive, so it is almost 5 lines. Then you will compute for the x factorial. Then another one, also check if y is positive for the square root. That's also 5 lines, and you will compute the square root of y. Then another one, it's the same, it will check that z is positive. Then it will compute the summation from 1 to z. So there is a group of statements that doing the same thing, though the variables are different, but the process is the same. So why not create a function that validates the input? Okay, so if we create that one, so we have now a function that scan and check any variable. For x variable first, that's one line only, not 5. Then you compute x factorial. Then another function that scan and check any variable, that's one line. You will, this time it will check the y, then you will compute the square root of y. And then another one, same function, but it check the z variable, then it will compute the summation from 1 to z. So instead of you copy and paste those validation that the variables are positive, you create a function that validates the variables are positive. Okay, so your program becomes shorter and more understandable. So another example, we have here a calculator. Okay, not a basic but a more little scientific. Okay, so we have here the if statement for addition, then else if for subtraction, else if for multiplication, division, then else if for the power. In a power, there's a for loop with initialization, condition, and increment. Then inside the for loop, you will update the value of the current result inside the for loop. Okay, and another one for the factorial. So the same. And inside the factorial, you update the value of the current result of the for loop. If your program becomes this complicated, you can create a function that performs some parts of a program. For example, the for basic operations, you can create one function for that one. Then you can create a function for the power and another function for a factorial. So your program would be a function that solves the four basic operations, then a function that performs power, and a function that performs factorial. So that's easy, right? So your program becomes shorter and more understandable. Not only that, it's neat and clean. So now let's go to function declaration and definition. So definition of a function is done outside the main function. The syntax of function definition is first the return type of a function, space, the name of the function, then in an open and closed parenthesis, there's a parameter list. Then inside the open and closed braces, there are two group of statements, the function statements and the return statement. The return type is the data type of the output calculated inside the function. If the function has no output, its purpose is for printing and the return type is void. Do you remember the void type? Okay? Then the function name is an identifier to know the purpose of a function. For example, it is a calculator, so your function name should be a calculator or a calc or a basic calculator whatsoever. Okay? Next is the parameter list. It is a set of different parameters, values, or variables that the function needs. So it seems an input for a program, okay? These parameters are separated by comma, and the syntax of each value is given by data type space the parameter name or the variable name. If the function doesn't need any parameter, it usually scans value inside the function. Then the parameter list can be empty. Okay? The function name together with the parameter list constitute the what we call function signature. The function statements together with the return statements is called the function body. So the function statements is a group of statements that define what the function does. Then the return statement returns the value of the function depending on its data type. So it is like the output of the function. There's no need for a return statement if the data type is void. The syntax of this is the keyword return space the output variable, then don't forget the semicolon. Okay? In some compiler, you need to declare a function if you write your function below the main function. The reason is to notify the compiler that this function exists, and there's no problem if you use this inside any function. The syntax for function declaration is the same with the syntax of the function, but it has no open and close braces, curly braces, and no function body, but it has a semicolon at the end. Okay? It's brutal, but it is real. You don't need the body when declaring the function, but the semicolon is needed instead. Okay? The order of the parameters in the parameter list also matters. So, copy and paste the head to avoid the errors, but don't forget to add the semicolon. Okay? There's a famous line from the song, "Just call my name and I'll be there." It is exactly what the function does. Just call the function name and the function will be there to perform the task. The syntax of calling the function is function name, then the open close parentheses. Inside of it are the parameter values, not the parameter list. But it could be also variable with values. Okay? Then, finally, don't forget the semicolon. If the function is not void, it is a good practice to store the value into a variable. And the syntax is variable equals the syntax for calling a function. If you notice, the parameter values is used instead of the parameter list because you only need the values this time. You don't need to include the data type of the parameters. Just a note or notes. Be sure that the data type of the variable and the return type of the function are the same to avoid compiler errors. Okay? The data type of each parameters must be also the same in exact order with the data type of the parameter list in the function definition and declaration. Let's go to function arguments. Most of the parameters used in a function are just values. There are also functions that uses the address of the parameters instead of their values. Actually, you encountered one, which is the scanf, okay? So let's go first by function call by value. So the call by value, or also called pass by value, calls the function by passing the value of each parameter. In this case, whatever happens with the variable inside the function will not affect the value of the variable outside of this function. It goes with the quote, what's inside stays inside. So, the variables, including the parameters inside the function, can't alter the variables outside the function and vice versa. In this case, the function is like a dream where your school supply changes, for example, have scratches or it breaks or has a different designs, etc. while you are dreaming. But when you wake up, there are no changes. But you know everything happens in your dream. Okay, that's call by value. Then let's go to function call by reference. The call by reference, also called by pass by reference, calls the function by passing the address of each parameter instead of their value. In this case, whatever happens with the variable inside the function will also happen to the value of the variable outside of it. You know not only its value but also its address. Do you want to be called by reference? To pass the variable by reference, you must add the ampersand symbol before the variable. Sounds familiar? Yes or no? Yes, it is the scanf function. Now you remember? I just said it a while ago. The syntax of calling the function is function name, then inside the open close parentheses is the ampersand and the variable name. Then don't forget the semicolon. You can pass more than one references, and you can also pass or combine pass by reference and pass by value, but you need to separate them with comma, okay? Because the husband and wife are also separating their comma if they have misunderstandings, so it's normal. The syntax of the function with pass by reference is return type, then the function name, then inside the open close parentheses is the data type, and then the parameter. But this time there's an asterisk before the parameter. Then an open close curly brace, and inside of it there's the function statements. Then if you want to change the value of the parameter, you need to add the asterisk before it. Okay, so we assign some variable to asterisk parameter. And if you also assign the parameter to a certain variable, you need also the asterisk symbol before it. So we have here the asterisk parameter is equal to or assigns to some variable. Then the return statement. Okay, always don't forget the semicolon. Okay, don't forget the asterisk symbol because if you forget, you will be manipulating its address, not the value. Okay, in this case, the function is like a house. Only the parameters are affected by this referencing. The parameters are represented by the people who needs to go outside the house. It's either to work or buy the needed products. So, if they cut their hair inside the house, they will also have a shorter hair outside the house. Then the local variables, which are the variables inside the function, will still stay inside. They are represented by, for example, the senior citizens and the children that must not go out of the house during the pandemic. You will understand more during the laboratory or in lesson 5.2. For now, let's you do your assignment number 6. Okay, thank you and goodbye.